Maybe we go to the other one. Yes. Yes, go there. Go there. Very.
On.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to have you here in Baku with us. And for those joining with us online, welcome. I'm Biana Magbitang from Climate Tracker Asia. Southeast Asia stands at a critical juncture, facing severe climate impacts from record-breaking heat to relentless typhoons. As a region heavily reliant on fossil fuels, yet rich in renewable potential, Southeast Asia embodies both the urgency and the opportunity of the global climate fight. COP29 isn't just another round of talks. For us in Southeast Asia, it's a chance to redefine the region's path forward, balancing the immediate needs of climate finance with a pressing call for a transition from fossil fuels. Today, we're joined by leaders who bring deep insight into issues. They'll discuss Southeast Asia's core expectations at COP29, touching on the role of international financial institutions, the responsibilities of regional global players, and the impacts of recent global political shifts on climate action. And now, to begin, we have Jerry Arances of Ceed. With Southeast Asia a crossroad between fossil fuel expansion and renewable energy opportunities, what direction do you think the region needs to take at COP29 to meet its climate goal?
Thank you, Biana. Thanks for everyone who's here. It's a very timely conversation to be having this in a region where we just experienced one of the most devastating a month of heat waves in the summer. For the first time in probably my history in this world, to be able to feel the brunt of a 40 to 50 degrees Celsius in a whole month. And that is not just in the Philippines, but the whole of Southeast Asia. It was really debilitating. Agricultural sector was really impacted. And just a few months after this is a whirlwind of storms, basically devastating many regions in the Philippines and as well as many countries in the Southeast Asia region. And this is the context we're in, and that's why we hope to raise the issue as we converse, world leaders converse on the needed mobilization on finance and linked to the energy transition. And taking off from the last COP28, one of our key findings is that Southeast Asia is still advancing massive fossil fuel dependence. In particular, even with all the mechanisms on transitioning away from coal, there is a massive expansion still that is happening in Southeast Asia, and coupled with a larger expansion on gas as touted as a bridge fuel. Many of us think that this is basically a new detour and creating new stranded assets in the region. And of course, many in the scientific community have already warned the expansion on fossil gas that it will actually create further problems for the world to be able to achieve the 1.5 degree stabilization. And what is very stark is that this massive fossil fuel expansion is basically financed and fueled by northern financial institutions, both public finance, specifically some of the institutions coming from the East Asian countries, in particular Japan, but also with commercial institutions and banks coming from European and the United States. And so the expansion of fossil fuel, which basically counters what the agreements has been made in COP28 and previous agreements on veering away or slowing down the financing on fossil fuel. On the contrary, still that is not the case in the region of Southeast Asia. In contrast, there is a booming renewable energy industry and expansion in Southeast Asia. Just from 2023 to this year, it has ballooned significantly from our monitoring. And what is very important in this finding is that majority, which is around 57% of financing that goes to renewable energy in the region, is coming from domestic banks. And so meaning that majority of the financing is actually being financed and pushed by southern countries such as and led by the Philippines and Thai banks in the region. And as we discuss the importance of energy transition, Southeast Asia is also housing half of the existing energy transition mechanisms and projects and programs ongoing right now, whether that is ADB, World Bank, or bilateral agreements on JETPs. And in general, what we're seeing is that most of these mechanisms, despite all the challenges, of course, encountered, is not really curbing the fossil fuel expansion still that is being pursued in the region. And that's why in this conference of parties, in this COP or COP29, it is very important, one, to reiterate the position and the push in terms of what the package in COP28 is in terms of phase out of fossil fuel, the tripling of renewable energy, and doubling of energy efficiency, which would mean that finance has to be mobilized. We are in agreement with most of the governments that have already been pushing, as well as civil society, global civil society organizations and communities for a 1 trillion per year climate finance with a minimum of 300 billion per year for mitigation action. And this is in relation to the global call, of course, by many civil society movements that are pushing for 5 trillion per year, which would allude to or link to the climate debts that the North owes to the South.
Thank you so much, Jerry. That is a very comprehensive picture of what's happening in Southeast Asia. But let's shift gear now and go to Arif. Let's talk about Indonesia's journey. Indonesia's made strides toward moving away from fossil fuels. But what do you think? What kind of backing or commitments could drive this momentum?
Thank you, Biana. On Indonesia energy transition finance, Indonesia investment need for energy transition are estimated at 146 billion USD to meet national target by 2030. However, the national climate financing realization amounted to only around 6,087 million USD in 2023. In addition, the national budget only allocated 3.9% for climate action annually. This creating a significant gap in financing needs for Indonesia, particularly for energy transition. However, relying solely on the national budget should not be the exclusive approach, as international climate finance sources are also available and should be accessed. Looking at the international climate finance architecture, multilateral development banks play a crucial role in providing climate fund. The cooperation between MDBs and national development financial institutions represent a strategic relationship for housing climate finance. This collaboration not only leverages the strength of both institutions, but also play a crucial role in attracting private sector investment by de-risking projects and creating a more favorable investment environment. In Indonesia context, international DFI is multilateral development banks that work closely with the national DFI to accelerate a country development. In Indonesia, PT SMI, Sarana Multi Infrastructure, serves as the national DFI, mandated by the government of Indonesia to support climate mitigation and sustainable development program through the establishment of Sustainable Financing Division for Clean Energy Development, with focusing on promoting SDGs and climate mitigation action through infrastructure development. It engaged with various international MDGs to access climate finance. And according to Indonesia's Sustainable Finance Action Plan Roadmap, its target reduction financing for core power plant project to maximum of 7%, while increasing financing for climate mitigation projects to minimum of 8% by the end of 2023. Among the MDBs, the ASEAN Development Bank and the World Bank are the main partner for climate finance access in Indonesia. Referring to our study this year, ADB has committed around 9 billion USD to the energy sector in 2024, including Indonesia pilot project in Energy Transition Mechanism ADB. And the World Bank Group has committed more than 6 billion USD to projects in the energy and extractive sector in Indonesia. In Southeast Asia context, many young coal fleets have come on stream in recent decades, with the average plant age around 10 years in Indonesia and 6 years in Vietnam, accounting for more than half of coal plants in each country. In relation to the role of NDBs in financing coal phase-out and increasing renewable energy projects, we see that ADB has believed that this situation will impede progress toward global climate goals and require special intervention, which lead to the establishment of Energy Transition Mechanism Program, piloted in 3 Southeast Asia countries, Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam. ADB aims to replace the program in major coal-consuming countries across Asia. In addition, ADB allocated around 3,000 million USD investment in clean renewable energy in Southeast Asia from 2018 to 2023. Indonesia received around 70%, amounting around 2 billion USD dollar. Then for the World Bank has committed to choosing direct financing for new coal-fired power plant generation since 2010 and has halted investment in upstream oil since 2017 and gas pipelines since 2019. However, there is consistency within the World Bank Group, as the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency supported PLN coal-fired power plant with backing of 35 billion USD, which still hold equity in Surabaya expansion project in Indonesia. Despite the expected commercial operational debt, or COD, in 2025, the situation contradicts the World Bank Climate Action document, which stipulates that the IFC will no longer provide financial support to financial institutions that do not phase out their investment plan in coal projects by 2030. Given the 5-year gap between the COD and the deadline, it seems improbable that financiers will draw long-term investment after only 5 years of operation. In the contrast, to the ADB, the World Bank does not view coal retirement projects as promising and anticipates difficulty in their execution. For instance, retiring coal plants, particularly those owned by the independent power producer, poses a challenge in altering of terminating clauses in agreement with coal supplier and energy off-taker, especially with the PLN in Indonesia contract. Despite there are a lot potential in tapping finance from the MDBs, there are several challenges that hinder access to ADBs for Indonesia government. The first is national level regulation, and the second is local content requirement policy for renewable energy development. These two non-financial conditions are considering primary risks and barriers to financing the energy transition and clean energy investment in Indonesia, primarily due to regulatory uncertainty in renewable energy development and the protectionist nature of LCR policy. This challenge impede financing access because they conflict with the open trade value promoted by the MDBs in the global market. While Indonesia has ambitious decarbonization target, its policy and regulation lack the commitment and action needed to support this goal. For instance, the implementation of downstreaming as national strategic policy affect the energy sector, including the renewable energy development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arif. Now we go to Hiroki. Japan's influence in Southeast Asia's energy landscape is very significant. Do you see Japan advancing or holding back the region's energy transition? And what role should COP29 play in addressing this?
Thank you. And I'm Hiroki Osada from Friendly Japan. Nice to meet you all. So to answer your question, Japan has always been trying to be a climate leader, or as that's what Japanese government is trying to claim it to be. But Japanese government is coming up with this big policy called Green Transformation and Asia Zero Emission Community, or AZEC. And Japan claims that Japan is going to help decarbonizing Southeast Asia and Asia, the whole region. But the reality is the exact opposite. Japan has been the biggest, one of the biggest energy importer from Southeast Asian country, but also Japan is one of the largest fossil fuel financier in Southeast Asia. According to this new upcoming report that Mr. Arances was talking about, Japanese financial institutions are accounting for 23% of total co-financing in Southeast Asia. Also, JBIC, Japanese public finance institution, JBIC has been financing 3.7 billion US dollars since 2016 to third quarter of this year. That is a lot. No other financial institution in the world financing more than Japanese, more than JBIC. So Japan is delaying actively the decarbonization or transitioning away from fossil fuels in Southeast Asia. Japan is delaying the transitioning away from fossil fuels, not just by this massive fossil fuel finance, but also delaying by promoting these full solutions like CCS, hydrogen ammonia co-firing. Japan, under the Asia Generation Committee, or AZEC, is promoting hydrogen ammonia co-firing and CCS. But many research shows that these technologies doesn't contribute much to emission reduction. But Japan is still keep moving forward because it is really good for Japanese companies. That's what Japanese companies' competitive advantage lies. Japan is also even help drafting the long-term energy plan in Asian country, including Bangladesh, Indonesia, and intentionally putting the energy and also these full solutions, and so that Japanese companies can sell these technologies. So again, Japan is actively delaying the energy transition in Southeast Asia. at this COP and also beyond, Japan has more responsibility than ever with Trump back in the office. Japan has more responsibility than ever to show its true climate leadership. We think that Japan can show its climate leadership in 3 ways. First way is Japan can commit not to finance new fossil gas terminal or any other project in the world. Japan should really not take advantage of Trump back in the office and should not go ahead with financing new energy terminal in United States, like Cameron energy expansion or Freeport energy expansion. We all know that these energy projects are actually causing a lot of harm, including severe health crisis among communities living closer to this energy project, especially among communities of people of color who tend to live closer to this energy project. Japan should really not finance energy project. Secondly, there's this negotiation under OECD about prohibition of public finance to fossil fuels. Japan can agree to expand the current prohibition from coal to include oil and gas. This negotiation next week is the last chance before Trump comes back in the office. Japan can agree to this proposal, and Japan should actually not only agree to this proposal, but also to encourage the United States to also agree to this proposal. Finally, at this COP29, Japan can and should agree to more ambitious NCQG so that Japan can provide fair share of climate finance. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Hiroki. Now, you've spoken about funding fossil fuel. Regina, I wanted to ask you about multilateral banks and European financial institutions. We know that they hold a lot of sway over fossil fuel investments in Southeast Asia. Can you give us an overview of the landscape?
Yeah, thank you. So I think the data that Ceed put together looking into the energy financing for Southeast Asia has one silver lining message, which is basically that financing for coal is going back a little bit. And I think that's something in dire times as these, it's important to look into this. And they looked into Western banks actually financing less coal in the region. They found that G7 institutions went down from annually giving 4.26 billion annually between 2016 to 21 for coal. That went down to 643 annually since 22. That's, in the first place, a good news. But it's still way too much. And what you have to see is that many financial institutions, private banks, brag or speak very loudly about, we are ceasing financing coal, and what we sometimes see is what they mean with that is they just stop financing project finance. And they still are able to give corporate loans to coal companies, and they are still able to hold shares or hold bonds of coal companies. And that's something that we see in the data on coal developers, the top coal developers in the region. They have important bondholders and shareholders coming from the US and from the EU. And it's the same thing for regional banks. Jerry was explaining that they are financing a lot of coal in the region, and regional banks have important shareholders as well that are coming from the US and from Europe. So that's a big loophole. And I think you were referring to MDBs, which have coal expansions. They are still able to invest into companies that are still developing coal in the region. So those are very important loopholes that need to be stopped, that need to be finished, those loopholes. And if we look, if we go away from coal, and Jerry has shown that the whole gas issue is more important than, is bigger in terms of what is planned than the coal issue. If we look into gas, the real big problem is that there are even much, much less restrictions regarding gas than there are regarding coal. Basically, with the MDBs, there are very, very little restrictions. ADB excludes upstream oil and gas financing, but still is able to finance midstream stuff. And if we look into private institutions, there are very few that actually restrict gas financing. There are little movements. ING, a Dutch bank, has some restrictions, but that includes still loopholes. We have Generali, an Italian insurer that now looks into excluding midstream gas, but there is still a lot to do on that topic. And on the whole question of what we want from COP29, it's very important. We see that with Trump back in office, multilateralism will get another ditch, but we can't have a climate denier in the White House stop climate action, and that's why it's really important that private institutions, private banks, private insurers, that they take some responsibility and go very clear on excluding finishing the loopholes on coal, excluding gas developments in the region, and that the MDBs move on this. And this is an important point for regulation as well, that not only banks do it on their own and on their own hoping to get something good out of it, but that there is clear regulation that excludes that. And I just want to underline the important point Hiroki made, the OECD negotiations on export credit agencies restricting oil and gas promoting, that's a very important thing, and it's actually something where the US delegation can still do something before they are out of office. Thank you.
Thank you so much, speakers, for sharing those insights. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time for questions, but we invite you on Thursday. We will be launching the report that they have actually discussed today. So we'll be launching it on November 14 on Thursday. And if you have questions to our speakers, just maybe we can talk about it on the sidelines and we can reach out to them. Our communications team is also here with us in this room. So if you have follow-up questions, you can just go to them directly. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope to see you around. Today is only day 1 of COP, and I hope you all recharge and have energy to last us until the 22nd. Thank you so much.